How does a celebrated war hero, a prince, the Queen's favorite son, end up disgraced, disowned, and ultimately arrested? This is the story of a royal fall from grace that's really unlike anything we've seen in modern history.
So, I want you to picture this. It's February 19th, 2026. A line of unmarked police cars rolls up to this quiet little cottage on the Sandringham estate. But this isn't just any cottage, and this is definitely no ordinary arrest. On what is his 66th birthday, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, the man who was once His Royal Highness the Duke of York, is taken into custody. And it's an event that sends absolute shockwaves through the British monarchy.
And the response from Buckingham Palace? Well, it's swift, it's cold, and it is ruthless. King Charles III, Andrew's own brother, puts out a statement that sends a very clear message: the institution will protect itself. The law must take its course. This isn't just a family drama anymore. This is the crown putting itself into a state of institutional quarantine.
So that's the big question, right? How on earth did it come to this? To really understand the arrest, we have to rewind. We have to go way back to the beginning, to a time when his reputation was literally forged in battle, creating this deep well of public respect that would, for decades, shield him from almost anything. It really all begins with this reputation for unbelievable bravery, a reputation built in the heat of a very real war. So back in 1982, during the Falklands War, the government, they wanted to keep Prince Andrew safe, out of the line of fire. But the Queen herself insisted he serve, and he did. As a Royal Navy helicopter pilot, he flew a Sea King on these incredibly dangerous missions, at one point even acting as a decoy for incoming Exocet missiles. He came back a decorated war hero, and that image of courage basically gave him a Teflon coating for years and years.
But here's the thing. There were always two Andrews. On one side, you had the war hero, the decorated combat pilot. But on the other, you had Randy Andy, the Playboy Prince. He was the celebrated veteran, and he was also Air Miles Andy, a guy known for his questionable expenses and even more questionable friends. This duality, this split personality, is absolutely central to his entire story.
And it didn't take long for those cracks in the facade to really start showing, especially during his time as the UK's special representative for international trade. So his job was supposed to be about promoting British business, right? But a pretty clear pattern starts to emerge. It repeatedly led him into the orbit of some pretty unsavory characters, dictators and their families. He hosted the son of Libya's Muammar Gaddafi. He held a luncheon for the son-in-law of Tunisia's dictator just a few months before the Arab Spring kicked off. And then there's Kazakhstan. Okay, get a load of this number. £3 million. His home, Sudding Hill Park, it had been sitting on the market for 5 years. Nobody wanted it. Then suddenly, a Kazakh oligarch, the president's son-in-law no less, buys it for £15 million. That's a full $3 million over the asking price. And then the place just sat empty and decayed for 8 years. The palace called it a straight commercial transaction, but wow, the optics were just terrible. But all of those little controversies, they would be completely dwarfed by one catastrophic friendship, a relationship that would become the defining scandal of his life and, in the end, destroy him. And the timeline here is it's damning. In 1999, he's introduced to the financier Jeffrey Epstein. 2 years later, the alleged assault of a 17-year-old Virginia Giuffre happens. But look at this. In 2010, and this is after Epstein has already been convicted for procuring a minor for prostitution, Andrew is photographed just casually walking with him in Central Park. That staggering lack of judgment forced him to resign as trade envoy in 2011.
So fast forward a few years after Epstein's arrest and death, Andrew decides the best way to clear his name once and for all is to do a TV interview. Well, it would go down in history as one of the most catastrophic PR failures of all time.
So, his alibi for the night of the alleged assault in London, he claimed he vividly remembered taking his daughter to a kid's birthday party at a Pizza Express in Woking. It was so bizarrely specific, it became an instant global punchline. And then it got weirder. To counter Virginia Giuffre's claim that he was sweating heavily when they danced, he offered this medical explanation. A supposed condition caused by an overdose of adrenaline during the Falklands War had left him physically incapable of sweating. And his reason for visiting a convicted sex offender? Oh, this is a good one. He claimed his personal tendency to be too honorable made him feel like he had to break off their friendship in person. The interview showed a stunning lack of empathy for Epstein's victims. The backlash was immediate, and it was vicious. Just 4 days later, he was forced to step back from all public duties. His life as a working royal was effectively over.
But just stepping back wasn't enough. As the legal pressure just kept building, the Crown began this systematic purge, an effort to completely erase him from the institution to protect its own survival. In 2022, to avoid a devastating public trial in the U.S., he settled with Virginia Giuffre for an estimated £12 million. And the big question was, where did he get that kind of money? His official income was a £20,000 Navy pension. Reports widely suggested that Queen Elizabeth II herself contributed millions from her own private funds just to make the problem disappear during her Jubilee year.
Then, the story takes this really tragic turn in April of 2025, with Virginia Giuffre's death. 6 months later, her posthumous memoir, Nobody's Girl, is published. It lays out her story in just harrowing detail, and it becomes this huge cultural phenomenon. For King Charles, this was the final straw. The prince's position was now completely, utterly untenable.
The dismantling of his life was swift and systematic. First, he's withdrawn from duties. Then comes the huge settlement. In October 2025, King Charles acts decisively. He strips Andrew of his HRH style, his prince title, and he abolishes his dukedom. By February 2026, he's evicted from the home he'd lived in for 20 years. He is no longer a prince. He's just Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor.
And this brings us right back to where we started, the arrest. Because this isn't just about one man's spectacular downfall. It's about the end of an entire era of royal impunity and a monarchy now facing a true constitutional crisis.
So, the final nail in the coffin came in January 2026, when unsealed court files revealed something new and something big. Emails. Emails that showed that, as UK trade envoy, he had been forwarding confidential government reports to Jeffrey Epstein. This wasn't just about personal behavior anymore. This was about state secrets, including intelligence on investment opportunities in Afghanistan, being passed to a convicted sex offender. That's what finally triggered the police investigation.
And you can see the damage right here. I mean, look at this chart. It shows the collapse in support for the monarchy among young people. In just 6 years, it plummets from 63% all the way down to just 23%. This isn't just a PR crisis for the crown. This is an existential one.
He faces the charge of misconduct in public office, and this is a huge deal. It means that, for the first time ever, a royal's diplomatic role is being treated as a public trust, subject to the same laws as any other government official. The maximum sentence is life in prison. The shield of royalty has been completely shattered.
So we're left with this enormous question. In a world that demands accountability, King Charles cut his own brother loose to save the institution. But when a prince can be held to account, arrested, and tried just like any other citizen, what does that ultimately mean for the future of the crown itself?